In this episode, I'm gonna travel across the street and down about 3/4 of a mile. I'm gonna go do an interview with my friend Hayden. He's an animal trainer. He's an actor. He's also a Hollywood stuntman. Stay tuned. I'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to Pine Meadows Hobby Farm. I'm your host, Jerry Hansen. I'm going to go down the street and I'm going to interview my friend Hayden. He is, like I said in the bumper, he's an animal handler, a trainer. He is a stuntman for Hollywood, and he also is an actor. He's my neighbor, he's my good friend, and let's go sit down in his living room and have a conversation and find out a little bit more about him. But in today's episode, what are we going to do today?
Well, we're just going to get up close and personal and talk about who we are and what started this mess, I guess, right? I think people want to know.
Yeah. First of all, how we met.
Yeah.
I saw you with your giant chickens down there at Rainey's Market where I buy my feed, you buy your feed.
The atomic chickens, we call them?
Yeah.
The ostrich?
Oh, the ostrich, yeah. And you invited me up and we started filming and it just went from there.
And the friendship blossomed from there. And here we are.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah, we've. I think one of our most popular video was doing foot care on the
Yeah,
elephants.
I saw that, the elephant foot care. I really like that. We'll have to do more of that. We'll do some skin care and talk more about how you care for an elephant. I guess people really want to see that, so that's what we'll give them. We're here to try to give you guys what you want, educate you, entertain you, and we want you to leave feeling like you got something from it.
Yeah. So Hayden, how did you get? How did you come about getting these animals in the first time? How old were you when you got started?
Let's go back to the very beginning. I hope I'm not going to bore you anybody. But so, as a child, from the time I was probably 3 or 4 years old, whenever anybody asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would always say I'm going to be a veterinarian, an animal doctor. I really thought that's what I was going to do, and I wanted to do that. But it became pretty apparent at an early age that I did not quite have the scholastic smarts, or the ability to focus enough. I was a bit ADD, ADHD, whatever you want to call it. Back then, there was no name for it. It was just, you're an idiot. And so there was really no help or very little, and there was really no name for what I was experiencing, and I was not getting the assistance I needed for me to enjoy or even focus enough to learn anything scholastically. I was always a hands-on kind of young man. If you put something in my hands and I could see it and feel it and touch it, I was a genius that way. I could problem solve and figure stuff out like very few people can, and I visualize things differently than everybody else. But my attention span has to be grasped with visual and auditory, and then being able to touch the object and feel it with my hands. But reading it, even though I'm a really good reader, I can't absorb it. It just goes away. My brain goes into, I get bored easily. My brain just goes off in a la la land. And so I was doing very poorly in school. So it was apparent really early that there was no way in heck I was getting a veterinary degree. I was never going to make it barely. I obviously made it through high school, did not pass with flying colors. I struggled very hard, but I had some good people in my life, especially my welding teacher. We talked about that earlier. I was very much into all of the courses. I was into woodworking and metal shop, automotive shop. Those are the things that really...
Textiles,
stuff that I could touch and feel. That's the stuff that I really focused on, and I was succeeding very well, excelling very well in those programs, but doing very poorly in the basic scholastic stuff. I mean, mathematics was not my thing. I was actually really good in English and geography. History, I was a little bored with history, which is a shame because now I love history. And it's funny, as you get older, I've learned to love certain things that I really despised when I was younger. But I learned to
I'm
cope.
guilty with that too.
Yeah, but I've learned to cope. I coped on my own. Nobody really gave me any assistance as a youngster, and so as an adult, I really learned to cope. And I really feel like if there was some assistance given to me back then, and I was maybe diagnosed with something, not that I needed a label, but just they could have said, hey, you just need this to do this to figure these things out, and that'll get you through. So anyway, I'm rambling, but the bottom line is, it was very apparent early that I was not going to get into vet school.
So you found a creative way to rechannel your ambitions.
Pretty much, it happened by accident, I'd say. So, well, not really, but I was working at a vet clinic from the time I was probably 13 or 14. My parents, we were the second largest llama breeders in the nation for 13 consecutive years. And because of that, we met a lot of interesting people along the way. We knew ranchers that had ostrich, we knew ranchers that had camels. There was a lot of exotic ranchers out there back in the day, and we were bumping into these people and meeting these people. My folks were also very tied in with the local veterinary clinic, which is in the Loomis Basin, which is by Sacramento. And I became very good friends with one of the owners of that clinic, and he kind of took me under the wing. He was another mentor of mine, along with my shop teachers and stuff. Jack Chelkin, my metal teacher, I shout out to him. He's probably the most amazing man and a very good father figure to me as a kid. He really kept me on the straight and narrow and taught me a lot. But this veterinarian, Rick Fry, kind of also did the same thing for me, and he took me under the wing, and he let me do a lot of stuff and showed me a lot of stuff, and he was just really good at showing me without letting me get bored. But anyway, working at a vet clinic from a very young age. My parents also, we had llamas and alpacas that sometimes would go to UC Davis Medical Center. There was a veterinarian there that ran the show there. He took me under the wing a little bit and showed me some stuff. So I was really focused on that, even though I knew that was not the direction I was headed. I was still very into that. I really loved the veterinary medicine aspect of things. And science was one of my favorites also. But anyway, so in the vet clinic working, in all the associations and clubs that had the word animal in it, whether it was 4-H, FFA, any kind of thing that had to do with animals, I was there. And I buried myself in that. My father, we were ranchers, so my father really had a very strict working policy, and he taught us, I'd say, good work ethics. And I was always a hard worker, so I was never scared of work or getting dirty. And I also was operating heavy equipment because my father had the ranch, and so I was operating backhoes and lots of tractor work and stuff like that. So I had as far as I had an all-around education outside of school, fencing, painting, whatever it was. And a lot of it was just because we were ranching. My father was working his business, so he left me and my younger brother basically to run the ranch. And we had a lot of animals. We had a lot of responsibilities ever since we were 12 years old. I mean, I remember being 12 years old and then bringing home a tractor and saying, plow the field. And I'm like, I don't know if I know how to work this machine. He goes, you'll figure it out. I don't have time to show you. Figure it out. And he would be on his way. And my brother and I would look at each other and scratch our head and go, well, okay. Let's see if we make this work. So that was kind of interesting. Not probably the best way to teach a young man, but it was a sink or swim. He kind of threw us in the pool and said, swim or you're going to drown. And so that was
and you survived.
I survived all that. Yes, I survived all that. Sorry, my little itch on the nose. Anyway, so all the clubs and programs, they had animal in it. And then I was in a regional occupational program for animal care at 15 years old, my freshman year of high school. And these people came into my class with chimpanzees.
Oh. And
so it turns out that this family, husband and wife team, their whole life was caring for a family of chimpanzees. And they worked at a famous animal park for many years. And then they went out on their own and had started their own little chimp family. And they had all the licensing in the facility. They had an amazing facility. And they started getting into movie work. First they started out doing educational shows, and then they started to supplement because that wasn't bringing quite enough money. They started doing film work, so they were doing the shows and the film work. And so they came into my classroom. I was like, holy moly, that's amazing. They're doing film work, and the light bulb went off. Ding! Well, hey, I want a career with animals. That sounds like something right up my alley. So they basically told me, hey, you're under 18. Insurance isn't going to allow it. This is a dangerous, dirty job. You're not going to want to do this. You really should find something else. I mean, they did everything they could to possibly discourage me from it because they get a million people that think they want to do it, and within a couple days they're like, "This sucks. It's too much work. It's filthy, dirty." It's just people don't realize it. Just seems very exciting at the beginning, and the honeymoon wears out real quick when you're working like that, and it's just really long, ridiculous hours. But they kept trying to push me off, and it turns out that they didn't live far from my home.
Oh,
I found that out by accident. See, I was very convenient. So I jumped on my bike and showed up to their house. I, cleaned their garage, cleaned their rain gutters, washed their windows, painted the eaves on the house. I mean, I did everything, and they kept saying, it's just this is not for you. You're too young. This is too dangerous. You don't, you need to find something else. Well, it turns out then they had some problems with some of their cages, and they were trying to search out a welder, and it was like a Sunday, and I'm like, well, I weld, and they're like, well, why didn't you say so? I'm like, well, I thought I did, but okay, I weld. So I started fixing some cages and stuff, and then I became more and more useful to them, and they realized that it was not I was not going to be a liability as far as like I was a good listener, I was going to follow their rules, and I was a hard worker, and I wasn't scared of getting dirty. And so they kind of took me under the wing. We just became very good friends, and within no time, they actually even before I was 16, even they said, "Hey, do you think your mother would let you raise a baby chimpanzee in the house? Because we have a couple babies right now, and we don't have enough people to care for them, and we don't let just anybody do this. This is a big deal. This is like a very big deal. They don't trust very few people to do this type of thing, because it's a precious little animal, and and it's a liability too. So they don't just hand these things off to anybody that wants to take care of a chimp." So I was like, I'm pretty sure my mom would totally go for that. And so I talked to my mom, and she was excited. So we raised a young chimp in the house for a year, and that was really exciting. Just having a big, like a little furry brother was kind of neat. So anyway, that happened, and then before I was even 16, they said, "Hey, we've got a commercial in Canada. Do you think your folks would let you go when you're out of school for the summer? Would they let you go to Canada for a couple months and help us work the chimpanzees?" And I'm like, I'm pretty sure they would.
Gore.
So I wasn't even 16. I was already working on my first commercial in Canada.
Score.
And so that was really exciting for me. I mean, that was a big deal. And that's kind of how the whole thing launched for me as far as getting into the animals. My big joke is that they said, "Well, how did it all happen?" I said, "Well, I kept burning the food at Taco Bell, and they told me you'll never amount to anything." I said, "I'll show you." But that's just a joke. But anyway, so that's how it started. I started very young. And I just made myself as useful as I possibly could to them. I made myself very valuable to them because I could do a lot of different things, and I proved that, and I just constantly was working at making their life as easy as I possibly could so they would need me and feel comfortable with me, and it worked out really well. A couple years after I started working for them, I did a couple commercials, a couple films with them. I spent a lot of time over there at their facility and working with the chimps, and we wound up working on a feature called Beastmaster with Mark Singer.
I've heard of it.
Gem. It's a real fine piece of work. I think it won a couple Academy Awards in it. Not. But anyway, it was an interesting thing. We wound up going down to Southern California with the chimps to work on this film. And there was a gentleman that had a husband and wife team actually that had some other animals, and they worked in the movie industry. And they had lions and tigers and bears, oh my. And I was like, wow, I really kind of want to learn more. I mean, I love the chimps. They're really wonderful. These great apes are just the most awesome creatures on the planet. But I was chomping at the bit to learn more, and I wanted to learn more. So I kind of hinted that to the guy that was working with the chimps. I said, hey, would you be angry with me, or if I decide to go work with this guy in Southern California for a little while? And they were friends. They knew each other. And can you put in a good word for me? And he goes, sure, I think it's great. I think you should learn more stuff. Especially because the work was a little slow at the time. He goes, learn more so that way you'll be a necessity to more people. So he went and talked to that guy, and the guy said, sure, yeah, I could use his help. So I wound up moving down to Southern California from Northern California. And I was kind of thrown into the lion's den right off the bat. I had very little experience with big cats and those types of animals. And it just so happened when I got there, there was a political meltdown that went on in the infrastructure of that business, and the trainers that were there were not getting along, and a lot of them left at the same time.
Oh.
And it left the gentleman that owned the facility with very little help at the time, and he had a whole bunch of projects coming up, all these films coming up, he had all these animals to take care of, and he's like, okay, well, I don't have time to really show you much, but you're going to basically be running the show because I have to go to Africa, and I'm traveling all over the place to do these shows. You're going to stay here and take care of this facility, and you're going to take care of the jobs that happen here. So I literally, I jumped in head first in the shallow end. It was a very, very short window to learn anything. Scary, not exactly the way you want to do it, but that's what wound up happening. I jumped into the shallow end real hard and fast, and I survived it. Thank God there was no serious accidents, a couple scratches and bumps, but other than that, it was like, you're going to learn real quick. You have no choice. And so I would say it's in my blood, kind of, because I've always felt more comfortable with animals than I have with humans.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more of animal person than a people person. So yeah, I started working with lions and tigers and bears, and it just was very fast. It's go 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 go. It is pretty. It can be very dangerous. I mean, some of these animals don't take to strangers very well. You have to spend a lot of time with them, and it's better to start with them when they're young, so you can build a rapport and a relationship with them. And then you're kind of in the middle of the hierarchy instead of being at the bottom. Well, I'm at the bottom, jumping right in with these things, and they test you. I mean, they don't messing around. They have claws, teeth, and they're capable of doing inflicting some serious harm and danger real fast. And here I am at the bottom of the barrel, walking in, and you're obviously, you're kind of there, or there. It's kind of hard to say, but you're kind of controlling them. Like, so all of a sudden, you put a leash in your hand. It's like trying to take a big Doberman or a Rottweiler or whatever, or a Great Dane that has never met you before, and somebody hands you the leash. That's not the best way to start. You really should start laying on the ground with them or playing with them first and making friends with them before you actually start saying, hey, come here and take the leash and pull. Especially for a dog that may just go, you know what, I don't know you, and you're pulling on my leash, or you're telling me what to do, and we don't have a relationship. And so that was tricky. That was really tricky. But I survived it and got through it really well. And the gentleman that I was working with was very knowledgeable, and he was able to show me a lot real fast. And then he showed me the basics and said, okay, sorry, but you're on your own. You better figure it out. And I need all these animals to get all the 100% attention, and you're going to have to work them without me most of the time. So good luck. And he was off because there were so many things going on, so many projects. He was off and running, and he was a very busy man. And so I took it from there. And it was a pretty interesting. I've lived an interesting life. It's been pretty exciting. It's never been a boring moment or a dull moment. Worked with him for a long time, and then right in between, or just shortly after I started over there, he had a tremendous amount of elephant experience, and he always wanted to have elephants of his own. He had worked with lots of other elephants in the past for other people,
but he didn't have any.
He didn't have any when I got there.
Time.
And I'd never been. Well, I shouldn't say that. I was around one elephant. It was a young male that was over at the Fresno Zoo that belonged to this gentleman, who's no longer with us. He's been deceased for years, but he introduced me to his elephant once, and that's the only elephant experience I've been around. Other than there was another guy at the fair they used to hang out with. They had a couple of elephants, but anyway, I'd never really been around that much. And so this gentleman says, "Hey, I'm gonna get this little elephant." And what do you think? I'm like, I've never been around an elephant, but that sounds super exciting. I think they're the coolest animals on the planet. So he gets this little African elephant, and I was just, I was in love within seconds. Like I'd never seen anything so amazing in my entire life. That was just the most incredible experience ever. It took my breath away.
How old was this little elephant?
She was 5 or 6 at the time.
Oh, okay.
She was a youngster, but she was just amazing, just absolutely amazing. Sorry. And so I fell in love immediately, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is the coolest creature on the planet. This is such a special experience, and probably very few people get to have this experience." But right after that, I started thinking to myself, like, "Wait a minute. I mean, they're social. She needs another elephant." And I said, "Well, you know, we're gonna need more than one elephant. We can't have one elephant." He goes, "Yeah, I know that, but I don't have the money for a second elephant right now." And I said, "Yeah, but you have the facility and the licensing for multiple elephants." He goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "So if somebody was accidentally able to come up with the money, could there another elephant be here to be friends with this elephant?" He goes, "Absolutely." So at the time, I had a little bit of equity into a condominium that I bought to live out by the ranch there, and I used some money that I'd saved up, and I bought this condominium, and I bought it really cheap, and I had enough equity in it. I went to Bank of America and said, "Hey, I need to do a home improvement loan. It's going to cost $60,000. So Bank of America gave me $60,000, and that elephant Susie out there, I was about 20 years old. That was where the $60,000
That's how she
went.
came into your life.
That's how she came into my life, yeah.
And you've had Susie since she was 1?
No. I got her when she was about 6, and I'm
6.
5 and a half, and I was 20 then, and I'm 55 now, so we can do the math on that.
Okay.
So that's how that happened. We stayed there for many years with the other elephant, and then I moved onto my own. I decided to branch out on my own, and that's what I wound up doing. Worked for the great pop star Michael Jackson for many years.
What did you do for Michael Jackson?
Well, I don't tell a lot of people about it, but I basically was an outside kind of consultant to the zoo facility. There's quite a zoo facility there.
At Neverland.
At Neverland, that's correct. In Los Olivos, California. It was a wonderful place. It was a real shame when it unfortunately met its end. I guess like all great things come to an end at some point.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
It was a very unfortunate situation. But anyway, I worked for Mr. Jackson over at Neverland for many, many moons. Worked with Janet a little bit, did some music videos for them. I was also, going back, there was another veterinarian that I was very good friends with, and he's also passed on over the years, but he was an amazing veterinarian. He was a zoo vet for all the zoos around the world.
Oh, wow.
And he introduced me to Mr. Jackson originally, and then I also worked with Siegfried and Roy a few times with their tigers, with the veterinarian, and I did some stuff for them. So that's how I kind of got tied into that whole thing. And Baba, the elephant, actually was Michael Jackson's. When the ranch started failing, I had my elephant Susie living at Michael's place with Baba, and they became kind of bonded. And so when things started going poorly there, I said to him, hey, there's a little bit of money that's owed to me, and the elephant needs a good place to go that she can stay with Susie and live out her life as a retired elephant. And I have the facilities and licenses, and so I'm going to come up with some more money after we make a deal, and I will take her and give her a permanent home, forever home. And he agreed.
Michael agreed to that.
Mr. Jackson agreed to that.
Nice.
And I've had her ever since. I've owned her. I've been around her since she came to the country at 2 years old.
Okay.
But I've owned her now. I'm just guessing, but I think it's been 16 or 17 years now. I'd have to do some digging into my records to see exactly the time, but it's about that long.
Okay, so Michael's had 3 elephants? Baba,
Yes, Baba, Ali, and Gypsy.
Gypsy.
And Gypsy passed from old age at she lived a very long time, about 57 years old, I believe was what she was when she passed.
Now, she was that gift that Elizabeth Taylor
Taylor gifted.
The famous birthday present.
Yes, and I took care of Gypsy for many years, or not for many years, for a couple of years before she wanted so Neverland had its facility built. And I was there when Gypsy was delivered to Mr. Jackson. I was staying in her life the whole time. And she was a wonderful Asian elephant, beautiful animal. Really sad to see her go, but she really lived a really long, full life. Neverland was a really special place. It really was. I mean, it had its. There was a couple things that I was not thrilled about, and it had its own set of issues. But overall, it was done very well. The facility was done very well, and when there was no money problems, there was never. We were always just told, make the animals as happy and comfortable as they possibly can be. And so that was great. I did like that. Mr. Jackson always wanted the animals to have the best.
One question I've known that you've worked for Michael, but I get questions now and again, just looking around and talking to people. Everybody's asking whatever became of Bubbles.
Bubbles the chimp is in a sanctuary, and I don't remember what state it is, but he's been in a sanctuary for quite some time. Sorry, I apologize.
Go ahead, we'll just
No, it's just an alarm.
Okay, speaking of Bubbles, I looked that up the other day before I did this interview, and I found out that, yeah, he's in a sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
He paints, and they sell his paintings.
Yeah. So he's in a sanctuary, and I don't remember what state it was. I was involved with some of the animals getting placed in sanctuaries when the ranch closed, but Bubbles was placed way before that.
Okay.
And so I was not involved with that one, but I do know that he's in a sanctuary, and it's supposedly a really nice facility.
Good.
And all the animals went to nice facilities. I mean, they all went to good sanctuaries. I was involved with some of the orangutans being placed. The tigers went to Tippi Hedren over at Shambhala, the Roar Foundation.
Okay.
So yeah, we did our best to make sure everybody got the best homes we could find. I wasn't involved with all the homes. Some of them I was outvoted on. But overall, Mr. Jackson said, look, the animals need to go to the best homes possible. Unfortunately, there were more chiefs than Indians.
Yeah.
Some of them maybe didn't go to the perfect situation, but we did our best we could, especially with what I could do on my end. It was important that was done properly. So anyway.
You mentioned you've done some music videos with Michael's sister?
Janet, yeah.
And you've done a couple more music videos, too.
Well, I worked on Remember the Time, which was a Michael Jackson music video. I worked on Black and White. I also worked on Jackson American Dream, which was basically about their life.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I did
and a couple of current pop stars. Christina Aguilera.
Christina Aguilera, Katy Perry.
Katy Perry's Roar and Christina Aguilera's Hurt.
That's correct.
Hurt, yeah.
Those are videos I worked on. But yeah, I did a lot of work over the years. There was a lot of films and commercials. And everybody said,
commercials.
people love to ask me what all do you work on, and it's all just a blur to me now.
Yeah.
I always get.
I can tell you he was in a couple of Super Bowl commercials, and one I get a kick out of.
Which one of the pedigree?
No,
Spike?
not the pedigree. Spike is in a pedigree commercial.
Yeah.
Come on, Rusty. Come on, let's go for a walk.
This one right here.
Oh, you're talking about the Super Bowl with the cheetahs?
Yeah, the
The
Super
Mountain
Bowl,
Dew.
the cheetahs, the Mountain Dew bad cheetah
Bad
commercial.
cheetah.
Bad cheetah.
So that
And
one's
actually, you know
hilarious.
what was supposed to happen is I actually landed the part of the young black actor that says Bad Cheetah. That's why.
Yeah.
And that's why. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm wrong. I'm not. The Bad Cheetah was the main actor riding the bike. I was supposed to get the part of the young black fellow that says, "See, that's why I'm not a cat person."
See? That's why I'm not a cat person.
And I actually landed that role. They I don't even know why, but they asked me to audition for it. I did, and they accepted. They said, "Yeah, we want him to do it." But what wound up happening is I couldn't do it because I was working the cheetahs, and it was going to conflict with the cheetah shooting. So I couldn't do that. I would have made a stupid amount of money if I'd have gotten that.
Oh, but you still got your
I
face on
still
camera.
did, and I got not so much my face, my body. So I did all the body double and stunt work, and so I did get a lot of residuals. I made really good money off that. But if I would have landed that, if I would have kept that other part, if I could have made it work time wise, oh man, I would have been really in good shape.
So now we kind of know a little bit more in depth on who Hayden is and what he is.
Yeah, and so I could never be a vet, but I married one. It's almost the
You
same,
married
right?
a vet.
And you know what's really neat about that I like, Jerry, is when we get mail, it says Dr. Hayden and Stephanie Rosenauer. So I am a doctor. I just don't get paid like one. My wife just really gets frustrated because I always make that joke. I'm like, look, I'm
Yeah.
a doctor. And she's like, whatever.
You got a PhD. I've seen it leaning against the wall in your tool shed.
Yeah,
Your
exactly.
postal digger.
Yeah, my postal digger, exactly. That's what I'm PhD in. I always tell people I'm a shitologist.
Oh, you got a mountain out there.
I got mountains. I'm an expert in these stories. Is one of the stories. Is one of my favorites. Is my wife and I have been to Africa before we even met separately. But I worked on a show called 1,000 Ways to Die, and I did recreated an elephant attack. It was based on a true elephant attack in Africa. This elephant took a Land Rover with a safari guide in it and flipped it over and injured the guy. And I was recreating the show, or recreating the accident, and I was actually the stunt guy that was being attacked by the elephant.
So you're not only an animal handler,
I do a lot
an
of stunt work
actor
as well.
and a stunt
Yeah, I do
man.
stunt work. I'm Screen Actors Guild, do stunts. But anyway, so the funny part was I did this thing. Never really discussed. I really rarely discussed with my family what I've done during the day because there's just we at the end of the day we're wore out. There's really hi, goodbye, here's dinner, love you, good night, and we don't really talk about a lot of that stuff. But 6 months or so go by, and all of a sudden I realize, oh wow, look, this thing I did, the recreation I did of the elephant attack is on the television. And I turn it on the volume, and my wife's sitting there looking, and she's watching it for a minute, and I'm watching. My daughter was young, we're watching it, and my wife all of a sudden kind of turns red in the face. She goes, oh my gosh. I'm like, what? She goes, well, the guy that you recreated, the guy that you're playing the part of the guy that was attacked, she goes, I dated him. So it turned out she had to call him and tell him she dated him when she was living in Africa. The guy that I was,
Oh no.
the guy that I was playing was actually her boyfriend when many years before when she was living in Africa. How weird is that?
Weird. Yeah, that's a coincidence that your wife dated the guy, the character you were playing. It's
Can
like,
you talk about
whoa.
awkward? Like that's
Yeah.
She actually called him in Africa to tell him, hey, my husband played you, and he was injured really bad. I mean, he had punctured
Oh.
lungs and everything. I That
He's
element
okay now.
He's okay,
Yeah.
but that element really messed him up. But anyway, yeah, that's funny stuff. And then there's a lot of funny stories. I can go on all day with them. But another thing that was really interesting is I was the Mexican Marlboro Man, but not the Marlboro Man. They have a cigarette there called Tigre cigarettes, and I wound up landing a part because I worked with the Tigers. Their whole thing is they wanted this cowboy type that looked like the Marlboro Man. They like to copy what we do. The big old Western mustache and the hat, and he not only does he ride horses, which is really cool to them, but he has this tiger that follows him everywhere he goes. So Tigre cigarettes being tiger in Spanish. That's their mascot is the tiger. So this cowboy is riding across country on this horse with a tiger following. Well, who writes this stuff? I mean, honestly, horses and tigers are not to be mixed.
Yeah.
But we did it, and it was wild. And so I wound up doing all the stunt work for this. So I was riding the horse with the tiger. And so what wound up happening is that the campaign grew so quick and so well, and it was so popular, they contacted me and said, hey, we want to continue using you for our guy. We want you to be the guy, the cigarette guy, for our Tigre cigarettes. Are you interested? And I said, well, sure I am. So they were flying me to Mexico to shoot more commercials, and I didn't know what I was getting into. I literally got off the airplane, and there was like all these screaming women begging for an autograph.
Oh my God.
I mean, I get off the plane. I didn't think much of this, and then I'm driving down the road. The taxi's just driving me down the road, and he points up. He goes, "You!" And he points up, and I look, and there's this giant billboard.
And there's
with
your
a picture
butt
of
on a
me.
billboard.
Big old picture of me sitting up on the billboard, and I'm like, "Wow, that is crazy."
That's funny.
Yeah, so those are the
That's
kind of
crazy.
funny little things that happen in life. You
Oh,
just don't.
my God.
I had no idea.
Well, one of your most iconic animals you have is Spike.
Spike the rhinoceros.
Yeah, tell us a little bit how you acquired Spike.
Well, that's an interesting one. So, there was a gentleman that I knew that basically he was a broker for animals for zoos worldwide, and he was in Prague. And I had met him a few times because I had done worked with him a little bit on some stuff, and he helped me get secure some pelicans from the Czech Republic. They were zoo pelicans, and they were what they call surplus birds, and they were trying to find another place to send them. And he had the contacts and the ability to get stuff imported into the U.S. legitimately and legally, and he had the channels, and he had all the knowledge, and he knew what needed to be done, how to file the paperwork. And so I imported some pelicans, and we kind of got a little talking. We're a little friendly. We got to talking, and he says, "Wow, you're really interesting. You've had a lot of different animals." I have had hippopotamus.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I had hippopotamus. I had leukemia back in '95, and during that, I was actually forced to sell my hippopotamus to another park, which broke my heart. I miss her dearly, but she had got a wonderful home there. But I did have a hippo, and I've been around pretty much and worked with all animals. I've owned a lot of really neat animals.
Did you get the hippo for Christmas?
I did not get the hippo for Christmas.
Oh.
But
the PV song.
exactly.
Oh,
So
my
anyway, he
God.
did say to me, he goes, "Well, you've had so many amazing animals. You've got an amazing group of animals, but what's your dream animal? Like, what are you dying for?" I said, "I've always just thought rhinoceroses were amazing. One day I would really love to have that experience of having a rhinoceros." I said, "But it can't be done because there's no way to get one into the country, and it's just really complicated, and you have to be basically zoological to do that type of stuff." And he looked at me and goes, "Well, I'm sure we can make that happen." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." So some time went by, and I talked to him again, and he says, "So how serious are you about that rhinoceros?" I said, "Like I said, it was you just asked me what animal would be really amazing. That's all I said." I said, "But I don't have any way to get it into the country, and I don't even know where to start, and that probably would cost a fortune to do." And he goes, "Yeah, okay." So he was at a auction for animals in Africa at the time, and he sees this on the list of animals that are being sold, a young male rhinoceros, almost about a year old. And so he did some research and found out that the mother had, this is what I've been told, is that the mother had been poached, and he was hand raised by a park out there, and so because he was orphaned. And so unfortunately he got kind of aggressive, and they don't know how to train or take care. They don't normally take care of and keep animals in captivity there. Everything kind of goes out to a park, which is funny because a lot of people say in the wild in Africa. There's very little wild in Africa. Everything's in a park. They're still in, I call them pseudo zoos. They're still got fences and stuff, and they still have to be managed and maintained. But anyway, because he had no fear of humans, he's imprinted on humans, he couldn't be released into a regular park. So he's being auctioned because he was kind of a liability at that point, because you let a rhino like that into a park, and he grows up and he's not scared of humans, that's how you have huge liability accidents. So he says, hey, there's this rhino, and it can't be released into a park. It's too handleable. It's been imprinted on humans. It's been raised. He's a bit aggressive. I went and saw him. Are you interested? I'm like I said, that's super exciting, but there's no way I can get this thing into the country, into the U.S. And he goes, don't worry about that. Let me handle that. I'm like, I don't want any trouble or problems. He goes, no. Up and up, all legal, all legit, guaranteed. I'm like, I don't know. So anyway, I said, well, I guess. And at the same time, my brain, I'm like, going, this is weird. I don't know about this. This is kind of weird. But I knew the guy, and I'd done deals with him before, and he was always legitimate and up on the up and up, and everything was always, the T's were always crossed, and the I's were always dotted. And so it just wound up happening. He's like, okay, so you need to come up with some money because I've got this going. This is what you need to come up with, and you got a rhino going to be shipped to you on this date, and all the paperwork's done, and the feds will be there, and the state will be there, and all the paperwork will be there, and you need to have a veterinarian to check this off and check that off, and you need to be there at this time with proper paperwork, and you better have your facility ready, and you need to have the proper trailer or equipment to move a rhinoceros baby. He was young. He was about 1,000 pounds, but you got to have the proper setup. I'm like, what? And he goes, I'm telling you, I told you I'd do this deal. It's happening. It's legit. You are now the proud owner of a young male rhinoceros, and he, he's an orphan baby. So now you've got this little orphan, and he's yours. So I scrambled and got everything dealt with and done, and we show up with my friend that's a veterinarian, and we get there, and it was all exactly like he said it was, and there was another rhino there that was going to another zoo. And he's been in my life for he's going to be 17, and I've had him about now 16 years this year.
Wow!
And he's been just an amazing creature. And our goal one day, and I've been saying it for years, but we really hope that we can raise enough funding somewhere to actually get a female for him. But they are non-social in the wild male rhinos. They only come together to breed and to fight, or territorial pissing, basically pissing matches. So they're not like a social animal, but as you've seen, people are like, well, he is social. I'm like, that is captivity that's created that. That's not a natural behavior. They don't really have any friends in the wild, and humans are definitely not their friends in the wild. So it's a dangerous world in the wild, especially in Africa, especially with hunting and all that. And there's a lot of legal hunting, but there's a lot of illegal hunting and poaching, and a lot of the rhinos in Africa have been shipped to this country, and we've got a lot of rhinos in this country right now because the African government has just been totally failed miserably at trying to protect them.
Oh.
They're just so valuable dead, just that horn. There's so much value on that horn that they can't keep them alive. It's just an unfortunate situation. So there's been hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of them imported in the U.S. in the last couple of years to mostly
just to save them.
Yeah, sanctuaries and stuff, just to keep them from being hunted out completely. When I got Spike, the southern white rhinoceros was actually doing very well. The numbers coming up dramatically. They were doing really well, and that number got crushed really bad just shortly after I got Spike. The numbers dropped dramatically.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I've heard that the numbers are just really in the hole bad.
Oh.
They've lost so many rhinos in the last couple of years, and then they've just shipping them out by the dozens to keep them alive.
And you are paying for the life of a beautiful creature. So please tell your friends and relatives, never buy products made from rhino horn. When the buying stops, the killing can too.
Because if they stay in Africa, there's no way to protect them.
Mm-hmm.
You got to figure what happens is that you got rhinos that are miles and miles and miles out in the middle of nowhere, and there's not like a security guard. They have no money to even do it, and these poachers have become so smart about it that they've become. It's basically like a cartel. I mean, they're like flying in helicopters, shooting the rhino, taking the horn, hacking the horn off, jumping in the helicopter, and flying off before anybody can go start a Range Rover that's 5 miles away from where the rhinos are. There's just no way to really solve
because there's
issue.
so much value in that horn.
Yeah, it's just very unfortunate, but that's the reality. In fact, I just was reading something about 9 years ago or 8 years ago. I don't know the exact date, but some rhinos were literally poached at a French zoo.
At a French zoo?
They came into the zoo in the morning. The rhinos were dead with their horns missing.
Oh.
That's how valuable those horns are. And so we have cameras on Spike. We watch them, and I carry a big stick. We're very protective over him. But one of these days, we'd like to get him a female. He wouldn't be able to live in the same pen with her, but they can have special courtships and visitations,
So you got
Baby
quite
mama.
that sanctuary
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Well, I don't like the word sanctuary as much. I mean, sanctuary is not really what we are, just because sanctuary, I think, implies that we're doing nothing more than rescuing animals, and that we are somehow animal rights. And so that's not really what our goal is. We're more of a conservation. I like calling it a conservation refuge. We're really, my wife and I, she's a veterinarian, so we're really about conservation and trying to save species, help species. So we've been working on nonprofit stuff. That's our goal, is to do a lot of philanthropic conservation work and try to help different species of animals they're very near and dear to us. So
Cool.
yeah,
Cool.
so that's about it, guys. I mean, that's kind of that's kind of the story.
Well, I'm back home now, and I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation and a little bit of insight. I want to ask you guys, if you would, please go over to Southern Oregon Safaris, where the buffalo roam. That is my other channel I produce with Hayden, where we go into detail about each individual animal and his history, more show business he's done, Super Bowl commercials, he's done movies, he's done a lot of stuff. So check us out over at Southern Oregon Safaris, where the buffalo roam. I'm your host, Jerry Hansen. This is Pine Meadows Hobby Farm, off the beaten path, interviewing another movie star, animal trainer, and stuntman. Yeah. You can do that by subscribing, clicking that bell icon that alerts you to new videos as I upload them. Give us a thumbs up, click that share button. Sharing my videos on your social media platforms helps us out. Remember, be safe, always be kind. I'll see you guys in my next journey. Bye-bye now.